recording? I forgot.
Okay, so this was a PR that was originally for some story to remove webhooks in the VM restore, and eventually Genya opened a bug that was fixed by this PR. But this PR includes API changes as well as the fix. So, and the bug is supposed to be for 4.18, and the 4.18 feature freeze is already up. So seems maybe problematic to backport it or not. Need to decide if yes or not. It is an API change, so we usually don't support this kind of backports. So the options are backport the PR as is, or create like a smaller fix specifically for 4.18 and maybe earlier that will change the current webhook to support the run strategies. Like the bug is that when you want to create a VM restore and you have run strategy which is different than halted, then you're not allowing the VM restore to occur, because we had a misconception that if the run strategy is not halted, then for sure the VM is not stopped, which is not the case with, for example, manual run strategy. So we fixed it already for a VM snapshot, and in this PR, since I removed this check altogether from the webhook, it was already fixed too. But again, it includes other API changes with this removal from the webhook. So the question is, should we keep the bug and mention it in it that in order to do the VM restore, you have to change to halted, or do like a minimal fix that can be opened only in relation to 4.18, which causes some diff from main.
Yeah, so I think, at least from my opinion on here, we can't have API changes in a minor KubeVirt release. So the first option I don't think is doable. And I think the third option also isn't really good, because seems like a fairly serious regression in behavior, because if this used to work and now it doesn't, so
it does. What do you mean it used to work?
Like before we made from what I'm understanding, before we made the webhook changes, we didn't have this problem with restore. Is that correct?
No, this was always the case. Originally, when we created the VM restore, we used the run strategy and expected to have it halted. But now people seems like using other run strategies like manual, and then it was discovered for VM snapshot, and I understood that it applies also to VM restore, and I'm not sure why the test downstream. I think the test downstream started failing because we maybe changed some print. I'm not sure.
So
Genia?
before 4.18, we were using running instead of run strategy. But starting from 4.18, we cannot use running. And that's why we started to see this bug with the run strategy.
Right,
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So, but like one thing regarding the minor release, like 4.18 is not released yet. It's only on feature freeze, but like we still have time.
So yeah, so I'll point out, this being the KubeVirt SIG storage call, we should actually really be talking about 1.4, which is released in frozen. So any fix would go to 1.4.z in KubeVirt. So we should try to, if we can focus the conversation to that, it would probably be best here. And
Right.
I would just say that for a 1.4.z release, I probably wouldn't want to approve API changes into that.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not an approver, so like, but I think my understanding of the general idea behind that is no API changes on a minor release.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So the question is if we want to do this, the change, which will basically it will basically have like a diff in the code from 1.4 to main. So it's more the question if we should do a small fix for this or just mention this as a bug, and if you want to make it happen, you need to change the run strategy to halt it.
So normally the API changes not going into the stable releases, it's not really set in stone. We've done this before for the surprising Windows changes. They required some API changes, and those had to be backported. But here, I think it's less compelling to backport the API change. But the bug itself, I mean, if it's a separate commit, why not? Like, it's a good change for 1.4.
It's not exactly a separate commit because the commit in the PR is removing the webhook altogether, where we can't do that if we don't have the fixes in the controller too. So a fix for 4.1 will have to be a new commit that will just change the webhook that exists in 1.4 to not check the run strategy and just VMI exists or not.
So to me, this is the classic complexity versus impact question. So I know that we caught this downstream with testing. I don't know if we're aware of any impact to other users by this bug. It hasn't been, I guess, reported elsewhere so far. So that it sounds like the impact is fairly low relatively, but if the complexity of the change, if it's just a small couple liner change, that isn't gonna, I mean, that's the purpose of having a Z stream. And it's sometimes I mean, it is fixed upstream or in main, but we're only doing a partial backport to the stable branch, and if that's simple, it doesn't seem that that wrong. That would be the route. So that's the change. It's either between 2 and 3 depending on impact versus complexity.
Yeah, I think it's not a complex fix. Just again that it will be different from main to
I don't think it's I mean, it's expected that if you maintain stable releases and those have bugs in them, then you're bound to diverge at some point. So to me, it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
But
And as long as one quick thing, as long as this fix wouldn't further hamper maintenance of the branch going forward for other fixes, which it sounds like because it's simple enough, it shouldn't.
Yeah, and since in main it was deleted altogether, then it shouldn't be an issue, I think.
Yeah.
Alice, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how option 2 looks like. But so I agree with Alex. We already backported sometime API changes on bugs, so it's not something that it's totally forbidden. So if it's justified.
Yeah, but I think the API changes is like adding to the VM restore a complete new field and new behavior with the webhook being removed, and now users will maybe rely on the webhook, and it's not such a small API change. Yeah. So I think the number 2 solution is best here. Disagree.
Would be it's a completely different code or it's a partial?
It will be a different code because again in main I just removed the webhook altogether, and currently in 1.4 the code exists. So
Okay,
but
but
I will have to add to the existing code some small liner, or even delete the 2 lines that check the run strategy and focus only on VMI exists or not.
okay.
All right, so do we agree option 2 is probably the first thing to try?
Yep.
Cool.
All right, sounds good.
Should we move to the second one?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I talked with Alice already earlier, and we wanted mostly Alexander's opinion, since it relates to him. So he also opened the original issue, which is currently we allow to change the data volume templates. So a user can change whatever he wants there. And we already had a customer that tried to change something in the data volume template to try to fix some other bug, and then it caused all kind of different undesirable behavior. So I opened a quick, like simple PR that just makes this change immutable, and then all the volume migration tests failed, obviously. And I talked with Alice to understand if this is problematic with the volume migration feature, since they allow to change both the volumes and the data volume template name in order to make it possible. I asked her if they also allow the size change and the storage class and stuff like this, if it impacts in any way the feature. And she said that for the volume migration, what they necessarily need is only the volumes part, and they allowed the change in the data volume template because of the webhook that makes sure that if there is a data volume template, then it is also exists in the volumes list. So she said it's possible to change the docs of the volume migration. So if you want to use it and you are changing the data volume template, you need to remove the old one, the old data volume, and just change the name in the volumes list. And she believes it's okay, but she wanted to make sure with Alexander, which he is the main user currently, that it sounds okay to him.
So I am actually, when I'm migrating, I'm actually changing both the data volume template and the volumes to match. So I think we should only prevent the changes if the feature gate is unenabled. Because if the feature gate is enabled, then I can change the values there.
Although, again, technically, the changes that you do in the data volume template are not being used for anything, just maybe to reflect to the user that
Correct.
like, yeah.
Correct. I'm putting a data volume with the appropriate annotation to adopt the PVCs and stuff. So it's not actually doing anything, but it's just for consistency that the data volume that you see after migration actually matches what it says in the data volume template. Otherwise, people are going to be like, "Hey, this data volume doesn't match what's in the template. What's going on?" So.
Yeah, so the solution was to delete it altogether, since you're basically creating your own data volume and use it for the migration.
So then would the resulting VM have no data volume template anymore, or are we adding a new one back?
Well, right now I'm adding a new one. I'm essentially replacing the old one with the new one.
Yeah,
Shelley is
the idea
suggesting
is
just
to
remove
not
it.
have, yeah, the idea is to not have any data volume template anymore.
So that, I mean, the only problem with that is how does it impact the ownership of the data volume? Because we sort of rely on that for VM, like when you clean up the disks on delete. So like the data volume template's more than just a convenience thing.
When I'm creating the new data volume, I'm actually also copying the owner reference, so that would not be an issue there. It's just it's sort of weird that I would modify that.
Yeah, it's a sort of unexpected side effect.
Right. So that's why I'm sort of like maybe it's better to just only allow the mutation if the feature gate is enabled.
Can we also, this is another question, could we also only allow the mutation? So the feature gate is intended to go away. So eventually that argument will be moot because there won't be a feature gate. But I wonder, what about only permitting modifications to the data volume template, certain restricted ones that are allowed, and only when the volume update strategy is set to you know, is turned on for the related volume.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry, one thing. So it's not related to the volume, the date. We have like the update volume strategy equals to migration, but this is the affects the entire. It's under spec, so it's not under H volumes.
Yeah.
But we could, I mean, if what Alexander is suggesting for the feature gate could be done for the policy. So when the policy is equals to migration, then we allow to change the data volume template. Otherwise, we reject it. It's a little bit more complex to check, but it's doable.
Well, we already have it in spec, right? I think it's even more consistent than checking a feature gate, which can be racy.
Yeah, so I like checking the policy better than the feature gate.
Yeah.
The policy is set to migrate, then we can change it.
Now,
I mean, if it's a migration, if it's the policy set to migration, it means that the change in the volume set needs to be interpreted as a migration. So yeah.
and are we worried? Are we worried in that case? Because I think the original bug was related to people like using this as a backdoor to change the size or things like that. Now, I know that Alexander's migration code won't do bad things, but do we still have an issue where somebody could set it to migrate and then change the data volume template in a weird way and then set the volume strategy back to volume update strategy back to normal?
Yeah, but this is like completely misusing the feature in order to do something else completely. And
I'm just wondering if there's a like if somebody misuses it, that's one thing, but is it
it won't actually do anything, right?
Yeah,
the values will be completely weird and in a strange state, but it's not going to change the actual PVC.
Shelley, I think you're giving us some echo from the enclave there. I don't know if there's anything you can maybe just have to mute when you're not talking or something.
I have a question about this, actually. I mean, so I'm just reading the description here. And it says users can modify fields in data volume template, which results in Kubert trying to, I can see it's create/modify mutable fields in matching data volume. So I can understand it will create new data volumes if they're added, but it shouldn't modify a data volume. If the data volume exists, it won't modify it.
It does modify them, but if the data volume doesn't exist, it tries to What was
It'll
it?
create it'll create it, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
which
modify
which
anything existing.
I'm trying to remember what the customer did that caused the weird.
So the customer was modifying the size and thinking that would data volume size, and that didn't happen because the change to the data volume was rejected because the data volume is immutable. So, but what the volume migration does is create a new new data volume, it deletes the original data volume and creates a new data volume, and then modifies the data volume template to match what the new one is. So it's not actually making any changes, it's the exact same value. So that's why it works. But if you try to change the size in the data volume template, then the data volume validation webhook is going to reject that, and it generated some errors for the customer. So that's what.
No, I've been in that code quite a bit. I don't see it. It just checks if the data volume exists. It doesn't try to. I don't think there are any calls to like update a data volume in KubeVirt.
Yeah, there isn't an update. I remember that it tried to create a new data volume which was invalid or didn't do what we expected.
Yeah,
I tried to play with this, and I just changed the name without any other stuff, and it created a new data volume, and the name of the data volume and the volume was the new one, and the previous one still existed, but that was the one that was attached to the VM and not the one that is now updated in the data volume templates and the volumes. It doesn't look.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean,
Can you open up the original Jira for a second?
One thing while we open the Jira ticket. So in general, all the VM specs should be updatable. So should be mutable. But might not be live updatable.
correct.
So if they are not live updatable, then we set the restart condition. So even setting something immutable, I'm not sure if it's the right.
Yeah, I don't think we should do immutable at all. So I think there are issues with data volume template. Right now, you can update a data volume template. Like there's no validation there is the kind of major problem with data volume templates right now. You could misspell something, you could put a field that doesn't exist. There's just no validation, and that should happen. But I think, so, and given that a data volume template, KubeVirt never updates a data volume, you can add a data volume template, sure. But that should, so if you just take the case where someone adds a new data volume template and a new volume to a VM, that shouldn't even affect this lab migration process at all because it's not being used. And then the only weird case I can think of is, and I think that we would actually allow this. You could say edit an existing data volume template, or create a new one. So let's say at the beginning of time you have a data volume foo, and that maps to a volume called bar. And then later you create a data volume template named Baz, and you assign that to the same volume bar. So that's not super confusing. And that is a weird case because you're essentially replacing the data volume, but still, as long as the VM is still running, that's an irrelevant change that we don't support yet. When we have declarative hot plug stuff like that, then that could be a problem. But Anyway, all this to say, I don't think we should make anything immutable in the VM spec. I do think we should do some validation though. And I think as far as the storage migration goes, if the user makes a change that sets the like restart required condition, I think that's the case we need to think about. So Alice, now, like say you're doing a volume migration and then someone adds some new volumes or something that will add the restart required. Does the volume migration even care about that?
So it depends which strategy you have set, but otherwise, yes. Because the validation for the volumes doesn't match. So for example, if you add a new volume that didn't have a previous volume, corresponding volume in the volume set, you should set the restart condition.
Right, but I think the only weird case is if you keep like the volume name, but change, say, the PVC, but still then that still just sets the restart required condition. It's basically the same thing.
Depends on which migration, which update policy are you using. I mean, that's exactly what triggers the migration if you change the claim name.
Right.
If it's an hot plug, then it's kind of unplug and hot plug. If it's a replacement, then it's a replacement. We have in the future when we have declarative hot plug, we should have the 3 strategy: replacement, migration, and hot plug.
All right. So what is the bottom line on this one? I'd like to just add a note under here. We are going to are we just going to allow it to be mutable only when the update strategy is set? And then not restrict what's mutable, or I'm trying to go back to the bottom line.
I don't think we should ever make any of this immutable, but a separate issue, there should be validation and we should handle any changes that are done there. And I also assert that contrary to what this issue says, like existing data volumes aren't modified.
All right, so we have 2 proposals. We have one by Michael to not restrict editing of the data volume template at all. And from prior to that, a suggestion to allow it when the update strategy is active. Do we want to make a decision here? Or maybe you want some time to consider it. Just up to you, Shelley, how you want this conversation to go here in the meeting with this topic.
Yeah, I think we should decide. I'm fine with either, although again, like if we leave everything immutable, then again, what prevents a user from doing like weird undesired stuff?
I mean, I was just going to say, like, I'm a little bit swayed towards what Michael says, because the data volume template is really just a plan for KubeVirt to create a data volume if it needs to. So it could need to, because somebody decides to delete the underlying data volume and have it recreated or whatever else. But we never tried to say that what's in the data volume template actually matches reality. It's just like, if I need to stamp one of these out, here's how I would do it. So it could, the user could put whatever they want in there, and as long as it doesn't need to create a data volume, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but like what about the example that I gave with changing the data volume name in the data volume templates and the volumes, which resulted in a new data volume being created and owned by the VM, but not actually plugged to anything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't care that much.
Yeah, that's like until the VM reboots, that's kind of moot.
Okay.
They could be just kind of prepping it up in stages. I guess it's.
Oh, once I live migrate, it's probably going to be a little weird what's going to happen.
So if it's not correct, if it's a new volume, then you will have if you do something, a modification like this with the strategy equals to migration, then it will set the restart require condition.
Mm-hmm.
And live migrate required. So.
No, it won't live migrate that volume because it doesn't have a old volume in the set.
Right. So I'm saying if I change the name to one, then I can no longer live migrate because the restart.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, because we want like to have a single change in the spec should be one operation basically.
Yeah.
Otherwise you need to patch twice.
I'm actually a little surprised that any modifications to the data volume templates would set the restart required field, because again, it's just directions to create a missing data volume if
No, sorry, Adam, it's not the data volume template change that said that, it's the change in the volume set.
yeah, that makes total sense. If you change the volumes you say you want associated with the VM, but like so there's two different mutations here, I guess. Like let them change the data volume templates however they want is what I'm thinking, unless I missed something. But of course, updates to the volume section need to be done according to the update strategy.
Yeah, I was in reply to what Shelley said about the example. Her example was modifying the data volume template set and the volume set.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if we are
Yeah,
in those, in that case, once you restart the VM, it will be start using the new data volume as well.
Yep.
Yeah. You can't change only the data volume templates. It will expect a change in the volumes also. So we are covered in that way. And regarding the verifications, Michael, that you said, I did added verifications since then because of the whole source ref and stuff. So there are some verifications, not duplicate of the data volume code, but what I thought was the most important stuff.
Yeah, right. Ideally, it would match, but it's a.
Yeah, so from a logical perspective, I agree. From a user perspective, it's very unexpected that the template is different from the volume. I'm expecting us to get user issues based on that. And that's what's caused the original JIRA to be created. So.
Yeah, I think with the verifications that I added the specific case you had in the JIRA ticket, then it wouldn't happen because it wouldn't pass the verification that I added. And regarding like simple verifications that is in the data volume webhook and not in the data volume templates, then the user will just see the error that the data volume couldn't be created, and then it can mute, change the data volume template accordingly, since it is mutable, as we agreed.
Well, we can definitely start with that and see if we get more complaints or not. It's definitely improved, almost there now. So that's really all I care about.
So basically, can we just close the ticket with an explanation?
Well, you added the validation stuff, right? So you actually did some work.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there could be room for a future feature if we detect that a data volume spec is data volume template spec is out of sync with the associated data volume in certain ways, that you could surface that as an event or just some kind of a informative thing, just to remind people that KubeVirt would not sync that. But that seems like a little bit of runtime overhead that wouldn't necessarily pay off when the stuff is used correctly. But okay. I think we're just gonna say to close the 49865 since we have validation and it's working as designed. Is that an accurate reflection of what was decided?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great. So let's move on to the next topic from Andrew in absentia, about someone in the community meeting asking about CDI releases and that they're a bit ad hoc. So this is a topic that has come up cyclically on this particular call in the past. So I see that, Alex, you've added, you want to just summarize what you said here, and maybe we can take this to further discussion.
So yeah, unofficially, we've been doing like a week or two after KubeVirt. It's been nice to have the flexibility, but it's not set in stone. We can align completely to KubeVirt, same day, same dates, or before. And for example, if we do before, we could integrate the new CDI and KubeVirt earlier, catch issues that way. We're kind of doing that internally in Red Hat anyway, but we could do it through upstream integration of the new CDI and KubeVirt a little bit earlier. But I can also see a way where when it could be a con, because if it breaks, then you're gonna stall the KubeVirt release. Then the coupling is a bit tighter. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I think it's doable. Like I said, for 61, it's already released. So I believe the community member that asked for the release got it. But yeah, it's just a bigger discussion if we want to align to KubeVirt or not.
Yeah, I guess the problem is that people don't know when to expect like a release for code or fixes that they got merged into CDI. It's sort of like a black box about when it happens.
Yeah.
Alex, but if we release earlier, I mean, it's true that, I mean, we don't necessarily need to merge the PR that upgrade the CDI in KubeVirt. You can just open a PR and verify and see how the CI goes. So it's, I don't know, I don't think it's really blocking KubeVirt release.
Yeah, but if you need a KubeVirt change, like the other way around, you need a KubeVirt change to adapt to CDI. It could be a situation where you release KubeVirt that doesn't work perfectly with the corresponding CDI, something like that.
I mean, if we had a predictable cadence, but the flexibility to have async releases, I wonder if that would be enough. Just so that like you could predict, okay, this thing got merged, the next release at worst would be, whatever 3 weeks in whatever the cadence is, right? Like the worst case scenario, there'll be a release by this time. But we could also, retain the flexibility to do it earlier. I don't know if that makes things more confusing or less. But yeah, I could see it being annoying if I had to constantly just say like, hey, cool, thanks for merging that PR. Like now please release it.
Yeah. I can tag Andrew and ask if he thinks it's a good idea to have like a 2-week window, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hopefully the release could be fairly automatic.
Yeah, I don't know if we can make it completely automatic. Well, of course we can, but it's been manual until now.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure it's the same for KubeVirt.
And with manual, it's just, I think Kuber does the same thing, it's basically just pushing a branch and a tag.
Yeah.
So we're not
Yeah, I mean,
like manually doing a bunch of crazy stuff, we're just creating a tag and a branch and that's it.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's not, I meant there's no like, there's no cron or something. Still have to consciously push that branch.
I think Kubert's the same way. I don't think there's a manual or an automatic release. They just say we're going to release on this date, but it can change or slip or whatever. So maybe the question is really is, should we just have a document somewhere saying that CDI will release, in general, 2 weeks after KubeVirt or whatever. I don't really want to do a every 3-week release cadence thing. We did that for the longest time, and we had releases where basically nothing changed from the previous release. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to collect a little bit of stuff before we make a new release in general. And for a while that worked well, but there's a lot more interest now, and we have more stuff going in at the same time at this point. So
Mm-hmm.
it may make sense to do more releases, but
Yeah, I mean, if like I wouldn't push an empty, an empty branch or tag, and this is for Y stream releases, right? Is what we're talking
yes.
about.
Yes.
Yeah. So these would make sense to do as needed when there's actual fixes on the branches, but like obviously if there's no commits in a 2-week period, which strikes me as very unlikely, then there'd be no need for a release. But otherwise, somebody, they bothered to get that code in, they probably want to use it.
Right, but I'm talking about there's like 1 or 2 like minor fixes or minor changes. It's like, yeah, okay, so do we have to go through the entire release process for that? But it's hard. I mean, CDI is definitely not nearly as active as KubeVirt itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm still sort of resisting being as rigid as KubeVirt with the release, just because we're not nearly as big and we don't have nearly as many changes.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if we wanted to just support this with a manually guided process still, but to say that it's the project's goal to release every 2 weeks, provided there's, we decide that there's a reason to release, like so that you could skip one or delay it or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's up to, I mean, obviously this is up to the project maintainers how to meet this request from the community. So
Right, I think we can definitely add to the release schedule at least a note saying that, hey, CDI, should release within 2 weeks after convert. So that people know that yes, CDI will make a release soon. But I don't want to be super rigid about it. So, but I do want to make some promise, like saying, hey, Super comes out, CDI will come out within a certain period of time, like 2 weeks or that's what we've been doing already anyways.
Yep.
It's just that people can find that we say, hey, that's what we're going to do. That's really the only difference.
And probably maybe, like what they should do if they'd like to request, if it's important, what to do, which is basically just send a note somewhere or whatever you got, whatever you guys would prefer the official channel for, like nudging you guys on the release if needed.
Right.
I dropped a note for Andrew Burden.
Great. Okay. So normally we end this thing at 10 till. I wanted to jump to my item. Thank you, Alice, for updating things. You want to just color in the
Yeah, I can
status?
I can give a quick summary. So there are actually two things that are blocking. So one is updating the virt stack, in particularly libvirt. So we are still missing the libvirt version with the fix in CentOS stream, so it should be done pretty soon. And the other thing is race condition discovered by Vladik, and Lubo thinks
I just wanted to check here. So does this PR reference the libvirt work?
No, but I can add the patches.
Okay, that would be cool.
One note about the libvirt work. I'm actually waiting on some libvirt changes totally unrelated to the volume update strategy. And Andrea told me that they caught during the QE process, they caught some bugs. So yeah, I'm crossing fingers that it's nothing major and not related to the changes I asked for. But just so you know.
Okay.
Might make it harder.
Right. So like I can say that, we're keen to see that feature gate removed, for the benefit of supporting this feature in OpenShift virtualization. So that's where I come at it. So yeah, just so if we can note the libvirt patches and just kind of stay up to date on where those are. And then you were gonna discuss the race condition.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a minor things, but yeah, if there is a mismatch when migration actually succeed and for some reasons, for example, the source pod crash and its mark as failed. So basically, the destination VM started to use the new disk and write stuff there. And then as the VM is marked as failed, then basically they delete the destination pod. So basically we are deleting, we are not synchronizing the old writes. So this is a common issue that we have also for TPMs. So Jad is working on a fix. So basically writing on disk. Who wrote if the VM if the migration the storage migration actually succeeded or not for both TPMs and in this case.
Okay, so I guess I would wonder why this needs to block the feature gate. We know it's a known issue. It sounds like we have a known fix for it. So, I wonder if it really blocks or if it can be done in parallel to fix this. I mean, it's definitely an issue, but it's already affecting a fully released feature, which is TPM.
Yeah. Yeah, I can talk with Lupo about this. I
Mhm.
can.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
I haven't seen the PR from Jed yet, but he told me he's working on that. So
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I mean, for me, the feature gate is, are we happy with the API? And
yeah,
is this something that we want to keep in KubeVirt? And these two issues are certainly real and important. Like, I wouldn't really want to use live storage migration with this libvirt issue because it's going to expand my storage.
yeah,
However, that doesn't really go to the question of, do we want to allow, do we like this API, essentially?
yeah.
So
It touches a gray zone of FeatureGate that we have using FeatureGate a little bit to mark the feature as mature and the API.
yeah, fair enough. Okay. Yeah, so if we could tread that, tread that carefully, hopefully. And I appreciate the attention on getting both of these things moved forward too. So thank you for that update. And with that, we are 4 minutes over the scheduled time. So I'm going to propose that we leave the issue triage up until the next one, unless there's something of super urgent urgency that we should look at. So I think, Alvaro, you updated that. Is there anyone that we really need to look at, or would it be okay to defer this until the next SIG storage call?
I think it's okay.
Okay, great. All right, well, thanks for that. So with that, good discussion this time. So thank you everyone for the participation and for joining today. So that's it. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks for the next installment. Have a good week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
See
Yeah,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.